Ted Bundy, the charm of evil. He was attractive, intelligent, charming. Ted Bundy embodied everything society admires: confidence, success, eloquence. But behind his eyes lay emptiness. Born in 1946, Bundy discovered late that the sister he believed he had was actually his mother. This identity shock shaped his relationship with deception and domination. A law student, he observed, mimicked, copied emotions he did not feel. Between 1974 and 1978, he killed more than 30 women, always young, dark-haired, with features resembling his mother. Psychiatrists describe him as a narcissistic psychopath, manipulative, remorseless, fascinated by his own power. "I feel nothing," he confessed. "I am an empty shell." Bundy was not just a killer. He was a distorted mirror of human seduction. John Wayne Gacy, the clown with two faces. Under his makeup, he made children laugh, but in his house, he buried bodies. John Wayne Gacy, born in 1942, led a double life: respected businessman by day, predator by night. He lured, raped, and killed more than 30 young boys before burying them under his floorboards. Behind the mask of clown Pogo hid a sadistic narcissist, born of a violent father and profound shame. He sought in domination what he never obtained: control. "I am not a monster," he said. "I am just a wounded man." But psychology sees in him a textbook case, a destroyed ego, rebuilt on the suffering of others. H. Holmes, the architect of murder. Before Bundy, before Dahmer, there was Holmes. The first American serial killer, he transformed a hotel into a deadly trap. His murder castle in Chicago, built in 1893, was a labyrinth of secret doors, soundproof rooms, and acid chutes. Holmes lured victims, often women, then made them disappear without a trace. His cold, methodical intelligence made him a Machiavellian psychopath, obsessed with manipulation and profit. "I was born with the devil in me," he would say before execution. Holmes did not act from madness, but by design. His brain functioned like a machine to destroy. Harold Shipman, the doctor of death. He wore the white coat. He spoke with gentleness. Yet Harold Shipman killed more than 250 patients, mostly elderly women. A respected doctor, he signed the death certificates himself. Everything appeared clean, orderly, until one detail betrayed his perfection. Experts describe him as a destructive narcissist, a man with a god complex. He decided who lived, who died, like a silent god. He did not kill for money, a psychiatrist wrote. He killed because he loved power. Shipman symbolizes the perversion of care, when healing becomes a way to dominate death. Jeffrey Dahmer, the need to possess. He said he did not want to kill. He wanted to keep his victims near him. Jeffrey Dahmer, born in 1960, lived a solitary childhood marked by fear of abandonment. As a teenager, he began dissecting animals. As an adult, he dissected men. Between 1978 and 1991, he killed 17 people. He drugged them, strangled them, then preserved their bodies, sometimes eating them. According to psychiatrist Helen Morrison, Dahmer suffered from a deep paraphilic disorder, a mixture of desire, fear, and the need for absolute control. "I wanted them to stay. Even dead, they stayed." Dahmer did not seek death. He sought eternal possession. Ed Gein, morbid love. On his Wisconsin farm, Ed Gein lived alone after his mother's death, but she never left him. Obsessed with her, he exhumed female corpses and stitched their skin to recreate her image. His macabre universe inspired Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Psychiatrists diagnosed hallucinatory psychosis and pathological mother complex. He did not understand death. He wanted to deny it. "I just wanted to bring my mother back," he whispered. Gein did not kill to destroy. He killed to stop being alone. Aileen Wuornos, the rage to survive. Abused, rejected, abandoned, Aileen Wuornos' life was a succession of scars. A prostitute on Florida's roads, she killed 7 men between 1989 and 1990. She claimed self-defense, but psychology saw an explosion of borderline rage, where hatred becomes a cry for survival. "I never wanted to kill. I wanted to exist." Aileen did not seek power. She sought vengeance for a lifetime of suffering. Edmund Kemper, the intellectual giant. Edmund Kemper stood 2 meters tall and possessed an IQ above 140. But his intelligence did not save him from madness. Humiliated by his mother, he first killed his grandparents at 15. Released 10 years later, he resumed his descent into horror. Female students, young women, then his own mother. Psychiatrists see chronic humiliation complex and compensatory psychopathy. The more powerless he felt, the more he destroyed. "She talked too much," he said after killing her, "so I made her stop." Kemper is among the few killers to have understood his own monstrosity without ever regretting it. Richard Ramirez, the devil's devoted, born in poverty, raised in violence, Richard Ramirez found in Satanism a justification for his chaos. Between 1984 and 1985, he brutally killed 13 people in Los Angeles. He claimed to be the devil's messenger. Psychiatrist Michael Stone described Ramirez as a paranoid schizotypic, obsessed with evil and domination. "Evil is beauty," he wrote in prison. Ramirez believed he was chosen, but it was not faith. It was madness. Albert Fish, divine pain. Albert Fish, born in 1870, was one of the most disturbing killers in history. He found pleasure in suffering, his own and others. An extreme sadomasochist, he tortured and killed several children, convinced God ordered him to act. Psychiatrists diagnosed religious psychosis mixed with sexual impulses. For him, pain was an offering. I am flesh, and flesh must suffer. Fish personifies the absolute nightmare, a man who finds faith in pain. David Berkowitz, the voice of the dog. David Berkowitz was born on June 1st, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. Adopted as an infant, he grew up feeling abandoned and rejected. Between July 1976 and July 1977, New York lived in terror. 6 people dead, 7 wounded, random shootings across the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. Living in a small apartment in Yonkers, Berkowitz used a .44 Special Bulldog revolver. He targeted young women with long brown hair, often couples sitting in parked cars. He sent mocking letters to the police and journalist Jimmy Breslin. He called himself the Son of Sam, named after his neighbor Sam Carr's Labrador, which he claimed was possessed by a demon ordering him to kill. On August 10, 1977, police traced him through a parking ticket issued near his last shooting. A witness had noticed a suspicious yellow Ford Galaxy. Berkowitz confessed immediately. Psychiatrists identified paranoid schizophrenia, auditory hallucinations, religious delusion, and demonic obsession. In 1978, Berkowitz pleaded guilty to all murders, withdrawing his insanity defense. He received 6 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life, a total of 365 years in prison. But in 1979, he confessed the demon dog story was a lie. He invented it to appear insane and mock authorities. His true motives, misogyny and rage against a world that rejected him. The voice was mine, he wrote later. Years later, Berkowitz claimed he was part of a satanic cult that helped him commit some murders. Police investigated, but found no concrete evidence. The theory only deepened the ambiguity around his real motivations. Decades in prison transformed him. Berkowitz became a born-again evangelical Christian, calling himself the Son of Hope. He expressed remorse for his crimes and works as an unofficial chaplain among inmates. His parole requests have always been denied. The boundary between madness and deception in Berkowitz remains blurred. Charles Manson, the prophet of chaos. Charles Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His mother was a teenage alcoholic and prostitute. His childhood was marked by neglect, abuse, and constant institutionalization. He killed no one with his own hands, but his words killed through others. In the 1960s, Manson founded a hippie family in California, attracting vulnerable young followers to his commune at Spahn Ranch. He convinced them to commit murders in the name of an imaginary racial war he called Helter Skelter. Manson believed the Beatles' song Helter Skelter from their White album was a coded prophecy announcing an apocalyptic race war between blacks and whites. His goal? Accelerate this war through brutal murders that would be blamed on African Americans, particularly the Black Panthers. In August 1969, his followers committed 7 murders over 2 nights. On August 9th, actress Sharon Tate, pregnant wife of director Roman Polanski, and 4 others were brutally murdered at their Cielo Drive home. The next night, Leno and Rosemary LaBianca were killed at their residence. The killers left messages written in blood, PIG, and Helter Skelter. Psychiatrists initially diagnosed schizotypic disorder, but evaluations were refined towards severe psychopathy and antisocial personality disorder. Experts noted his eccentric behavior and megalomaniacal delusions, seeing himself as the Messiah or Christ reincarnated, were linked to cold, calculated manipulation. He created a mad persona to control his followers and attract attention. I am not the devil, he said. I am what you created. Manson became the symbol of the dark side of the 1960s. His influence on followers is the most famous example of how toxic charisma and pseudo-religious prophetic discourse can lead to blind violence, transforming seemingly normal young people into obedient killers. He was convicted in 1971 and sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment. Charles Manson died in prison on November 19, 2017, at age 83. Manson was not mad. He was the product of a world without landmarks, where charisma replaces truth. Dennis Rader, BTK, the killer's order. Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas. He grew up in Wichita, where he would later become one of America's most unsuspected serial killers. For decades, Rader lived a double life. By day, he was a model citizen, Air Force veteran, municipal compliance officer for Park City, devoted husband and father of 2, and active member of his Lutheran church, even serving as congregation president. By night, he was BTK. Between 1974 and 1991, he strangled 10 people in Wichita, Kansas. He kept precise notebooks of his crimes, names, dates, details, emotions. He signed his letters to police and media BTK, bind, find, torture, kill. His modus operandi revealed sadistic sexual fantasies centered on control. He often hid in victims' homes, waiting for them to return, savoring their fear and helplessness. The meticulous planning fed his obsession. I just wanted to be the one who decides. Perfect profile of an obsessive-compulsive psychopath. Need for control, manic organization, complete absence of empathy. After his last murder in 1991, Rader went silent for 13 years. But in 2004, obsessed with recognition and reliving his notoriety, he resurfaced. He contacted police and media with new communications. His downfall came in 2005. Rader asked investigators if he could send a computer disk without being traced. Police told him it was safe. He sent a floppy disk. Authorities immediately traced metadata to his computer at Christ Lutheran Church, where he worked as council president. Dennis Rader was arrested in February 2005. During his trial, he recounted his crimes with cold, clinical detachment that confirmed total absence of empathy. He pleaded guilty to all 10 murders and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. BTK illustrates the concept of the narcissistic, Machiavellian predator who kills not only to satisfy fantasies, but to assert absolute power and manipulate the outside world, media, police, community, who saw him as a model citizen. BTK did not kill for pleasure, but to impose his law on the world. Andrei Chikatilo, the Soviet monster. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo was born on October 16, 1936, in Yablushne, a village in Ukraine during Stalin's brutal famine. His childhood was marked by extreme poverty, starvation, and rumors that his older brother had been cannibalized by starving neighbors, a story that haunted him throughout his life. In the shadow of the Iron Curtain, he killed at least 52 people, women, children, and teenagers, across various regions of the Soviet Union from 1978 to 1990. Nicknamed the Rostov Ripper, or Butcher of Rostov, Chikatilo worked first as a teacher, then as a factory supply clerk in the transportation department. He lured victims near railway stations and bus stops, places he frequented for work. His modus operandi was marked by extreme violence and post-mortem mutilation, including acts of cannibalism. The knife was his primary weapon. The horror of his crimes was directly linked to his inability to achieve sexual satisfaction due to impotence. Murder and violence became his only means of reaching orgasm and a sense of power. For him, murder was liberation. Each knife stroke compensated for his weakness. Soviet psychiatrists diagnosed sadistic psychopathy, but also complete emotional emptiness. "I never knew how to love," he would say. The fact he evaded capture for over 12 years was partly due to official Soviet ideology. Authorities refused to admit serial killers could exist under communism, a phenomenon deemed capitalist. This denial hindered investigations. Psychological profiling was ignored. Public warnings were considered unnecessary. In 1984, Chikatilo was arrested for suspicious behavior, but released from murder charges because his blood type on police records did not match semen found at crime scenes. Investigators later learned Chikatilo was a non-sequitur. His semen did not contain blood type markers. The real killer had been dismissed. Chikatilo was finally arrested in 1990. After days of interrogation and under pressure from a profiler who exploited his megalomania, he confessed with detailed descriptions. His trial in 1992 was conducted with the killer locked in an iron cage to protect him from victims' families. He was convicted of 52 murders and executed by firing squad on February 14, 1994. Chikatilo remains a terrifying incarnation of psychosexual violence fueled by feelings of inferiority, self-hatred projected onto the vulnerable, and a social and political context that allowed his acts to remain unpunished for a decade. Chikatilo symbolizes the violence of a world that denies male weakness. Pedro Alonso López, the predator of the Andes. Pedro Alonso López was born on October 8, 1948, in Tolima, Colombia. He was the seventh of 13 children born to a mother who lived in deep poverty. His early years were marked by hardship, neglect, and frequent violence. At the age of 8, his mother forced him to leave home after he hurt his younger sister. Left to survive on the streets, he was mistreated by several adults, an experience that deeply scarred him and influenced the person he would later become. Known as the Monster of the Andes, López confessed to taking the lives of more than 300 young girls, mostly pre-adolescent, often from poor or indigenous families, across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador during the 1970s and 1980s. Authorities were able to confirm at least 110 victims. Having suffered greatly in his childhood, López repeated the same cruelty he had endured. Psychologists describe this as identification with the aggressor. His crimes reflected a twisted desire for control over the innocents he could not understand or accept. Greater than "they were so pure," he once said. "I just wanted to possess them." López was captured in Ecuador in 1980 after attempting to take a young girl near a market. He later led police to several burial sites containing the remains of his victims. Despite his confessions, López was tried for only 110 murders in Ecuador. Because of the country's laws at the time, he could receive a maximum sentence of 16 years. After serving 14 years, he was released in 1994 for good behavior, a decision that caused international outrage. Deported to Colombia, he was briefly committed to a psychiatric hospital. In 1998, he was declared fit for release. The monster of the Andes vanished in 1999. His whereabouts remain unknown, leaving behind one of South America's darkest mysteries. Pedro Alonso López's story is a chilling example of how a destroyed childhood can lead to destruction, and how cycles of abuse, poverty, and failed justice can give rise to unimaginable tragedy.